So, inconspicuous. But let's say about a month ago, I decided to take a trip with my partner because we are big music festival people. We like concerts and shows and things like that. And we had found a pretty cool looking festival that was happening in New Orleans. And neither of us had ever been before and thought, well, this feels like a good opportunity to go. So we decided to just go ahead and book the trip and go because, again, it was a cool place to go and we hadn't done any traveling for a while and it just felt like the right time. And I'm not sure if I've mentioned this in other videos or not. I may have, but I have a terrible fear of flying. I hate flying, and my partner does too, for different reasons though. He is very much like, he's a Virgo, so he's very analytical, very big on planning and logistics, and his fear lies in like canceled flights and delays and not making it to your destination on time and the more like scheduling side of things, whereas for me, I'm like, whatever, we'll get there when we get there. But my fear lies in that I think the plane's gonna go down. I think that I am not making it off the flight, that it's the last time I will see anyone I care about, and that's what I get really worked up about. So we both hate it, but for different reasons. And I had not been on a plane for about 5 years. Yeah, about 5 years. But I figured it's time to just sort of rip the band-aid off and get on a plane because, I can miss so many opportunities because of this fear. So anyway, just a little bit of background on that. So the day that we are flying out, we work at a co-working space that's close to the airport, I'd say. I don't know, less than 30 minutes probably, just so that, it would be easier and a little bit less stressful. And as, we're going through our meetings that day, I can just feel myself getting really stressed out, feeling really anxious and irritable and upset. And in my last meeting at that co-working space, it wasn't an important meeting, luckily. It was actually more of like a workshop, so I didn't have my camera on, which is good because I just kept crying on and off because I was so afraid of getting on the plane, and it just was hitting me like, okay, I'm going to the airport after this, and cue the waterworks. Honestly, it was it was kind of embarrassing. I'm just like sitting alone in this little pod for this meeting, tears streaming down my face, and on the side I'm like Googling things, which obviously is the worst thing you can do when you're like really afraid of something, is to Google it, which is a hobby of mine. I will admit I do this all the time, and I regret it every single time, so I don't recommend it. But that's where I was at that time. And so when the meeting ends, we're packing up our stuff and getting ready to go, and I'm just like not doing great. Obviously, I'm in the car and we're driving, and my partner is trying to sort of distract me, take my mind off of things to make me feel better, like asking me about my day and my meetings and all of that. He's trying to tell me about his day in just So we're driving. I'm quietly crying again. And we get to the airport and start to mosey our way inside. Now, luckily, we got to the airport pretty early, which is what I wanted to do because for my own anxiety, I figured I could at least reduce some of it if I have some time to get acquainted with the airport and maybe get something to eat, grab a drink, look through the magazines, try to get myself comfortable and geared up. Because if I'm running really late and feeling anxious, then it's gonna make me feel worse. So I wanted to give myself that time, which I don't know that it really helped. I was still feeling really unsettled. But luckily, I am able to get prescribed Xanax for when I'm in situations like these because I do have high anxiety. So when I go to doctor's appointments that are really difficult for me, I'll get prescribed something to help, a small amount, just to sort of keep me from going into a panic attack, which is pretty common for me in the past few years. So same thing, I had medication with me, and I took it about an hour before we were supposed to take the flight, which is good because at that point I was feeling really irritable, and I felt bad because I just, when I get upset, I want to be alone, and that's the last thing that's going to help me. But I was really starting to feel panicky, and so needless to say, I did need to take the pill, and I think it helped a little bit. It never completely rids me of my anxiety, but it keeps me from having panic attacks, which is good because my panic attacks typically lead to vomiting and sometimes passing out, and it's really embarrassing. That's what I care the most about, is how embarrassing it is when these things happen in public. Not that I'm, throwing up or whatever, because I know what it's like, and it's happened to me so many times that it's just embarrassing. Anyway, so we're getting ready to go. We're walking over to our gate. We sit down, and I'm like, okay, I can do this. And then I'm noticing that there's a lot of I don't know, hubbub. People are looking frazzled or annoyed, and they're going up to the front desk to talk to people. So my partner goes up to see what's going on, and he's up there for a while. So I'm thinking, okay, it's probably not great news if I had to guess. And I can see that he's starting to get visibly upset, anxious, because again, his fear of flying is the logistical piece of travel, the scheduling, the coordinating, things like that. So I go up to see if I can be useful in any way, and I find out that the flight had been delayed. And so I'm like, okay, how long is the flight going to be delayed? And she's like, I don't know. We have no idea. It's due to weather. I feel like they always say it's due to weather when half the time it's not, but they just don't want to be liable. And if they say it's because of weather, they don't have to comp you or reimburse you or help you in any way. But regardless, she said it was because of weather, and she, I have to be honest, was one of the rudest human beings. She should not have been working customer service desk, because she was just so unpleasant, and I could tell that in part that's why he was getting so flustered, because she was being really rude to both of us. And for me, I'm whatever, I don't care, you're just not a very nice person, but that's not helpful when you're anxious about something. So I could understand why he was getting upset. But so anyway, so the flight is delayed, and the problem is that we have a connection that we're trying to make, and because of this delay, we're thinking we're not going to make it, and that we're going to get stuck overnight in a place that we aren't very familiar familiar with. So we're trying to see what our options are. At this point, I'm taking over because it's like not going well for my partner. And I'm like, okay, well, like, can we book like another flight then in case we miss this connection? Like, obviously we'll try to make it, but like, can we have a backup plan? And she's like, yeah, like, how about 6 a.m. the next day? And I'm like, okay, is that the only flight? That's the soonest flight? We can't get anything for tonight? And I'm asking, like, are there other, airlines that we can fly from? Like, this is really our only option, is to get something for the next day. And she interrupts me when I'm asking a question and goes, okay, well, now the 6 a.m. flight is gone because you wasted too much time talking and distracting me, so that flight's gone now and I need to find another one. So just wait here while I'm like looking for another flight. Like, it's like just so irritated with her. She was just so unpleasant, for no reason. And I'm like, okay, whatever, great, just do what you need to do, I guess. And so she finds one for like 10:30 in the morning the next day, and I'm like, fine, just put us on the flight. I don't care. And at least we have the option, like the backup if we need it. By this point, my partner's gone. I don't know where he went. He was walking around somewhere, and she was like, is he okay? I'm like, no, he's like panicking right now. And she was like, oh, I'm sorry. I'm just thinking to myself, like, yes, if you could just be like a little bit nicer to people who are just like trying to figure out their plans, then maybe you could make everyone's day a little bit better. I don't know. Obviously, we weren't the only people up there trying to like get information, so I get it's stressful, but at the same time, it's like there's a certain way to go about things, and she just was, I think she shouldn't have been the one in that position, but anyway, it doesn't matter. It's neither here nor there. So, anyway, we finally sit down. I explain the situation once my partner finally returns from whatever little saunter he went on. And I explain like that we have these backup tickets, and we'll figure it out. If we miss this connection, then I'll look into hotels or something, like whatever. So we're sitting and we're waiting, and by this point we've been waiting for probably close to 2 hours, still just not knowing when the plane was coming. I don't know why nobody could give us any information about like the ETA. They're like, yeah, we don't know. I'm like, okay, great. But then we see on the app for like our connection that flight is delayed too. So we're like, okay, hold up, we might be alright. We might have a chance of making this connection, and then it's totally fine if both flights are delayed. So we're keeping a really close eye on that, right? And thinking like, okay, this is good news, we have a chance here. Finally, the plane comes in, and they do like the whole deboarding process. They clean it, whatever. They start calling people to go in. So we get on the plane, and to be honest, by this point, I don't even feel anxious anymore, because I just want to get over so let me get back to the story. So, we get on the plane. 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 We're sitting down. Great. Happy to just be on the freaking plane, right? And then the pilot comes on to like make, his announcement or whatever. And he goes, "All right, ladies and gentlemen, I am afraid to say that I am not reporting with good news." And we just look at each other and we're like, of course you're not. Of course you don't have good news for us. Why would you have good news for us? That'd be crazy. And he's like, yeah, so the airline that we're flying into, which was Newark, the airline that we're flying into is having some like bad weather. So right now they're not allowing any flights to come in. As they're like working to, I don't even know, I don't remember, but they just had to like catch up and get situated so that they could allow other planes to come. And so our pilot was like, we're ready to go whenever, but we need to get the go-ahead from them because right now nobody can land and we don't know how long that's going to take until they lift that like travel ban, whatever you want to call it. So I'm like, okay, great, we get to just sit on the plane. And yeah, they're like, we really don't know how long it's going to be. It could be a while. I'm like, awesome, perfect. So they bring out snacks and we're just chilling there. And again, like as our flight is continuing to be delayed, the other flight, that our connection flight, that's also continuing to be delayed because it's from Newark. So I'm like, okay, there's still hope. We still have a chance. So I'd say about an hour later, we were cleared to take off. So we were just sitting there for an hour not knowing what was going on. It might have been a little bit longer than that, but I was honestly not keeping track because I was just so tired at that point and just, I don't even know, just kind of out of it, I guess. It had been a long day, So we take off, we're flying. I actually handled it really well because like I said, I was ready at this point, and my partner's really supportive with things like this when I'm like clearly anxious and nervous. So like his support was helpful, and there was a little bit of turbulence, but it was fine because this flight was really a hop, skip, and a jump. Like I think it was a little over an hour, maybe closer to 2, but not a bad flight by any means. So we land and we look at the clock and we're like, oh my god, we can make this flight. We're gonna make this flight. Because we had like 20 minutes or something like that. And as we're kind of like loading in, I look at the gates next to us and I know that our connecting flight is close to our gate. And I'm like, oh my god, I see it. That's our plane right there. It's waiting for us. That's our plane. And I'm like, we have time. We just have to get off and we have to go. Easy. Pilot comes on to the intercom again and he says, all right, folks, well, we're a little backed up, so we're going to have to hang tight for a few minutes here and we'll get you off as soon as we can, but it's going to be a little bit. And we're like, oh no. We're so close. It's right there. I can see the plane. It's right there. It's right there. So, the time is just ticking by. And it's finally time for us to start unloading, right? To get off the plane. We're kind of towards the back. So we're getting ready to go. My partner looks at the app and he's like, we're not making it. And I don't know, maybe like 30 seconds later, something like that, I look out the window. The plane is just slowly backing up. So we missed our connection by maybe 5 minutes, something like that. It was terrible. And honestly, at that point, like I could do nothing but laugh. We were like, this is just, it's funny. Honestly, it's funny at this point. But I'm because I obviously was really excited about like our itinerary as well. So yeah, we spent quite a lot of time on the phone with customer service, trying to find customer service in person, but no one was helpful. They were basically like, yeah, it's gonna cost you an extra like $600 per ticket, something like that, to get onto the flight that you want, because we're gonna have to upgrade you and whatever. It was so stupid. And there was no one there in person that could help. Like, everything was closed, there was no food, there was nothing to eat. It was just such a mess. And so basically we spent a good chunk of time on the phone, back and forth, both of us on phones, talking to different people, trying to get onto this flight. And then I kind of just like have this realization of, it makes no sense to get a hotel right now, because we're gonna sleep for, I don't know, maybe 3 hours, and then have to come back, go through TSA in Newark, and it's not even worth it. And we're gonna have to shell out the money because they told us they're not liable and they're not gonna help us in any way, and like, we're not like willing to spend that money, you know, like we don't really have a lot of money. So I'm like, let's just keep trying to get this flight and let's camp here. Like, let's just stay here overnight and try to find a place to sleep. And we're like super hungry, but all of the food is closed. Like, all of the little kiosks are closed because it's overnight. There's pretty much no one anywhere. Finally, I'm able to like do a self-serve like kiosk station where I'm able to add that flight. We're able to join like the wait list. There's another word for that, another term for it. Oh my god, what is it? I don't know, but we're basically on call, like, and we're the first in line in that queue for this wait list or whatever. And I had been trying to do that all throughout the night, but I don't know, it was at probably 2 or 3 in the morning that I was finally able to select that flight. So I'm like, okay, at least that's okay. In a few hours, we'll head over there towards the gate and we'll see if we can get on the plane. Like, we're not gonna know until we're there, but hopefully someone will take pity on us and get us on this flight. So that's what we do. And in the meantime, we're like looking for a place to sleep, but this is the least sleepable place I think I've ever been. You know, they have the chairs, but they're like, they've got those really high like rests, arm rests. So you really can't find a place to lay down unless you're laying on the floor, which is kind of gross. And plus, you know, we're in the airport, we have to wear masks, so that's not really comfortable for sleeping either. So we decide to just stay up, pull an all-nighter, like we're back in college or something. And I pull out my laptop, I connect to the Wi-Fi, and we just start streaming 90 Day Fiancé for a few hours. Which we both love that show, so it was fine. And honestly, like, it was kind of a crappy circumstance, but I was just thinking, like, at least we're together. Like, we're watching a show, we get to hang out. Like, it sucks, it's not where we want to be, but at least we're not alone, we're going through it together. So, like, definitely trying to make the best of it, and it was fine. I just knew I would be so exhausted the next day because we'd be like having a full day, right? So a few hours later, we go over to our gate and kind of hang out. He sleeps for a little bit, and then he wakes up, and I attempt to sleep, but I struggle with sleeping. I always have, and it's very hard for me to even sleep in my own bed, let alone in a different place. So I'm trying to rest my eyes, but I know I'm not going to be able to actually fall asleep. It's just not going to happen. And I'm like, whatever, I'll just go to the was just like so out of it. But luckily we were able to get on this plane and we were able to sit together, which I didn't think was going to happen, and that made me nervous because I didn't want to sit alone. But whatever, we're on the flight. We're like, yes, we're gonna leave 6 a.m. We're gonna get on this flight. They make an announcement and they're like, just letting you know that the flight has been delayed due to a mechanical issue. Like, we'll keep you posted. We don't know when your plane's coming. So I'm like, wow, after all of that, we're not even getting on at 6. Of course, right? So, we wait around, and I think it ends up getting delayed like 2 hours. Maybe 3. Actually, I think it was 3 because I remember us saying we probably could have just taken the 10:30. Okay, sorry about that. My battery died, and then I got sidetracked, and now it's nighttime. But anyway, I think I left off by saying that the flight we were able to get onto was delayed by like 3 or so hours. After we spent all of that time trying to get on to that earlier flight. So what ended up happening is I went right to Starbucks as soon as they opened, got an iced green tea, got probably a bagel or something, got some stuff from my partner, and I let him rest because I knew that I would not be able to fall asleep in the airport, especially as things were opening up and it was getting more crowded. So I kind of did like a little airport shopping. I didn't buy anything, but just walked around, and finally by the time we were able to get on the plane, I was exhausted. But I had really hit my second wind at the airport, so I feel like that helped a lot. And then the caffeine obviously helped too. So the flight, once we were on the plane, was fine, but there was mechanical issues with the first one, which is why we had to wait for that second one, which took so long. So finally, after I don't even know how many hours we were supposed to get on the flight at 6 p.m. the day before, and we finally made it to New Orleans like in the afternoon the following day. So it was just like a whole thing. And then as we landed and got there, it was really the best trip. We had so much fun. The only thing is that because we landed late and had to check into our room, and that took a while, I didn't have time to sleep. I couldn't take a nap or anything, so we had to go right to the music festival. That was really the whole reason we booked the trip. And so I didn't fall asleep until like 10 o'clock that night. So I really rallied. I tried really hard. And I was mostly fine because I kept getting like 3rd, 4th, 5th wins and trying to caffeinate. But there was a certain part at the festival towards the end where I was just like so out of it and so tired, and oh my god. And then we get back and I'm like, okay, let's get something to eat, let's get dinner. And I'm like, let me just like rest for a moment. And then it turned into, can we do Grubhub instead? Like, can we get something delivered? Because I don't really feel like going out. And then the last thing I remember is he was placing the order. And then the next thing I knew, it was the following morning. I felt bad. I totally knocked out, but I could not stay up any later. And my body needed it. So anyway, that was the first part of the trip. Getting there was super annoying, but we did make it. And like I said, the trip was so much fun and definitely worth it. And then, as it's time for us to come back, we're just thinking like, well, I can't be there, so I was not excited about this like upcoming experience. We go to customer service and we're like, okay, our flight's canceled. What do we do? How do we get home? And this was there was going to be a connecting flight, and then we were gonna head back up to Vermont. And she's like, okay, well, the earliest I can get you back to Vermont is next week. And I literally let out the like, I can't even describe it, just this like loud laugh. And I just was like, we can't do that. We need to get back today. Like, we're not staying here for another week. Would love to, but can't do it. Can't do it. So she's like, yeah, unfortunately, like, we can't help you. Maybe you can try like some different airlines. So by this point, I'm getting like stressed, right? And luckily, like, my partner kind of like switched roles with me. Like, he was really stressed on the way there, but he could see that I was getting pretty flustered, because I'm like, how are we gonna get home? Like, I'm looking at the prices from different airlines, and it's like $1,400, $1,600. Like, we can't afford it. Like, these last minute flights are like crazy high expensive. And he's like, don't worry, like, I'm gonna go talk to some people. Like, just keep doing what you're doing. Let me know if like you find anything good, but I'm gonna go like talk to a few different agents. And so he ends up finding a flight on Spirit Airlines, which is another airline that I've never heard good things about. But because they had a flight that was delayed, we would make it on time onto that flight, and it wasn't that expensive compared to the other flights that were outrageous. But the problem with this flight was that it wouldn't take us to the airport that we needed to get to. Instead, it was going to take us to an airport 3 hours away from where we needed to be. And I'm like, okay, well, I guess that's what we have to do, and I'll hope that someone can come get us. Like, it's such an annoying request, but there's no other way for us to get home. Like, we can't afford to do any other thing. Like, there's no option aside from doing that. So I'm like trying to get hold of my family. I'm getting hold of my roommate, and they're all busy. And I'm like, let's just get the flight and see what happens and hope that it works out. And luckily, my roommate, who is a saint, offered to come pick us up, which is so annoying for her, because it's, like I said, a 3-hour trip just to go and get us, and then you have to take the 3-hour trip back. And actually, it was a little bit longer because we had to go back to the airport we were supposed to arrive to, because that's where my car was, and we had like some work stuff in there that we needed to get. So I think all told, we got to the airport at like midnight. The airport that we were supposed to originally get to, like after all was said and done, and my roommate came and got us and whatnot. We get to the airport we were supposed to arrive to like past midnight, pick up my car, head back to our Airbnb at the time, which took another hour and a half. And so we got home at like 2 a.m. on Sunday. And it was just such a miserable travel experience. Like, I used to fly a lot pre-pandemic, and like I don't know, like flight anxiety. It's gotten worse as I've aged. I'm not sure why, but I used to fly all the time, and I've never had issues like that before. I've never missed connections. I've never like not been able to fly into the airport I needed to. I don't know. It's just like, it was a whole different world, and I think a lot of it has to do with just like, because like we are still dealing with the impacts of COVID. Airlines are struggling. They're less staffed because, you know, people are sick, and they're trying to like do things safely. So I don't know, there's just a lot going on, I think, with like airlines these days. So I get it, but it was just such a miserable experience. And then trying to get like any kind of voucher or compensation for the things that we were fully entitled to, like not even the weather excuse, like, because just so many things went wrong at different times. Like, I don't know, it was just a mess. The trip was worth it. Like, we had so much fun, and like I said, like, everything about that was great. Oh my gosh, but flying to and from, it was just a nightmare. So I definitely don't want to get on another plane anytime soon, but we'll see. We will see. Let me know if you have recently taken any kind of trip where you've had to fly, and if you had any kind of similar experience. I'm hoping it was just like a string of bad luck and that this is not the new norm, but I don't know because it's been so long since I've flown. But yeah, let me know. That was my trip from hell, or my flight from hell. Multiple flights from hell. I gotta fly direct next time, but they're so hard to find and they're expensive, so you know, it is what it is. But anyway, thank you for listening to me rant for what feels like a while now. If you're still here, I appreciate it. And I'm sorry it's been so long since I've made videos. I'm in my third Airbnb, but I am gonna be moving into one more short-term temporary situation, and then I will have a place to stay for good. So I'm really excited about that. I'm hoping all of this craziness dies down a little bit in the near future, hopefully by end of May, early June. So I'll do an update video on all of that when I can, but I'm just hoping that I'm sort of nearing the end of this time of chaos where it's just hard to get like anything done, which is why I've been so far behind on the videos and why my setups are different and weird all the time, because I'm just like constantly in different spaces trying to figure things out. But anyway, with that said, thank you again for watching. I hope you're doing well. Let me know how you're doing in the comments. And again, I just appreciate your support, and you know, I do read the comments when I can, and I do appreciate the concern and all of that. So anyway, thank you again. Have a great rest of your day or night wherever you are,